It is week 11 in the 2023 NFL season, and now we're going to be breaking down the NFC playoff picture before we get things going on Thursday Night Football tonight. So really can't wait to break this down and kind of give you guys my predictions for how the NFL playoff picture is going to shake out here in 2023. But before I get into my predictions, before we get into the current playoff picture here, make sure you go ahead and like today's video. Click that thumbs up icon if you're a real one and you want to help out the channel. So let's start with the NFC here, where we got the division leaders with Philly in the lead right now, best team in football record-wise at 8-1. The Lions currently at 7-2 at the number 2 spot. San Francisco at 6-3, and then the New Orleans Saints currently atop the NFC South at 5-5. Seattle is the 5th seed at 6-3. Dallas right behind them with the same record at the number 6 spot. And then the Minnesota Vikings at 6-4 at the number 7 seed. The next team in the hunt is a 4-5 Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. So right now, there's a little bit of cushion between those wild card teams and the teams in the hunt. Washington and Atlanta could absolutely still be in the hunt, especially Atlanta for the division there in the putrid NFC South. But any team that's really 3-6 or lower, Green Bay, Los Angeles, Chicago, I'm not really looking at them truly in the hunt at this point. Could Washington and Atlanta potentially make it back? Absolutely. Same thing with Tampa Bay, but it's definitely going to be an uphill battle at this point. Shifted over to the AFC, where you got the reigning Super Bowl champions, Kansas City Chiefs, looking like they cannot be stopped. Number 1 in the AFC at 7-2. Ravens right behind them at 7-3. Jacksonville sitting at 6-3 in the 3rd spot, and then the Miami Dolphins sitting at 6-3 as well at the number 4 spot. Right now, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they have been outgained in all 9 of their first games this season, currently sitting at 6-3. That's great coaching, if you ask me. Then you got the Cleveland Browns, Deshaun Watson, out for the season. We'll talk a little bit about that when we talk about the AFC North later in today's show. Doesn't look good for Cleveland. That's definitely in a vulnerable spot. Then Houston upset the Cincinnati Bengals on the road last week. C.J. Stroud looks like the bona fide franchise quarterback there in Houston. Cincinnati, Indy, Buffalo, Las Vegas are the next 4 teams out of the AFC playoff picture. Now coming up next, my updated playoff projections. I'm going to be going through every division, giving you guys my updated standing predictions for each division, and I'm going to tell you seeding predictions and wild card predictions as well. So make sure you guys stick around. But first, let me know down there in the comments section, which NFL team will come out of nowhere this year to make the NFL playoffs. I want to know that team that you think is going to make a big-time surge. It's going to be the pinned comment on today's show. So whenever you get a second here, YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple seconds. When that happens, take advantage of that time by giving me your team down there in the comments. All right, so now let's start with the NFC yet again, and let's start with the North. The NFC North, where nothing's changing here for me, man. I think Detroit's going to be the number 1 team in this division. I really like them. I think that they're much improved from last year defensively, and then Ben Johnson's got that offense humming. Minnesota with Joshua Dobbs, it's a great story. Definitely going to be a playoff contender after having this nice little cushion there in the NFC playoff picture. Green Bay, Chicago, not very good teams in my opinion. Then you get to the NFC East projection here. I think that Philly, really good football team. Dallas is going to be right there, though, all the way through, but I do think the Eagles will end up getting it. Eagles maybe a little bit overrated. The defense is a little bit lower ranked than I would have expected in many defensive categories. 3rd down defense, red zone defense, a little bit lower than I thought that it should be at this point in the year. Washington, interesting football team. They really need to start winning because they're sitting at 4-6, and Ron Rivera is trying to save his job. Then the New York Giants might be the worst football team in this league right now. Then you get to the NFC West projection here. San Francisco, I think, is really going to make a big-time surge here for that number 1 seed. You guys will see that in my projections here coming up. Seattle, maybe a little bit overrated. Not really great on 3rd down. Not really good in terms of turnover ratio. Well, actually, no, not turnover, red zone. But overall, Seattle, decent football team. They can move the football quickly. Then Los Angeles, 3-6. They're going to stick where they are. And then Arizona with Kyler Murray. Very interesting and fun team to watch for the rest of the year. But the roster stinks. They're gonna finish last in this division. Then in the NFC South, I am going to switch things up here with really my only change from last week's list, where I think the Atlanta Falcons are going to make a surge in the second half, and they're going to overtake the NFC South crown from the New Orleans Saints. I think the Saints have the better quarterback play of the 2 teams, But Atlanta, I think that they can run the football really well. Their defense does a pretty darn good job in the red zone and on third down. They're not really terrible in any category that you look at statistically, which is a really good sign of a playoff team. So although Atlanta, probably a first-round exit, I do think they're the best that this division has to offer. Tampa Bay and Carolina, at least in my opinion, definitely on a lower tier than the Falcons and Saints. So let these two teams battle it out, man. It's definitely going to be fun. So now the NFC division winners, I do think San Francisco makes this push, and they really put together a string of wins to really compete for that number one spot. Philly, really good football team, number 2 team in the NFC, I think is where they're going to end up. But I think the defense is going to cost them a couple of games. It's definitely going to be interesting to watch them versus Kansas City this weekend. Then you got Detroit, number 3, and then the NFC South champions, Atlanta Falcons, sitting in the number 4 spot. Now let's get to the wild card predictions here, where Dallas is going to be number 5. I think they're going to challenge Philly for the NFC East crown, especially if they keep winning here. But I don't trust them in the playoff setting. I don't trust Mike McCarthy. This is the most penalized team in the National Football League right now, dead last in the NFL in total penalties. So I really don't trust them as far as I can throw Mike McCarthy, but they're going to make the playoffs, and they're going to win a lot of football games. Then I got Seattle. I'm not the biggest fan of Seattle. I think they're probably a one-and-done exit again this year, but they're definitely talented. They're winning football games right now. They're in position to make the playoffs, so I'm going to have them making it. Then we got Minnesota. I don't think anything changes from where it's at right now. I do think Minnesota with Joshua Dobbs is going to be good enough to make the playoffs. Watch out for Washington. Maybe watch out for New Orleans here in this final wild card spot. But give me the Minnesota Magic here up north to make the NFL playoffs. Now coming up, I'm going to be going on to the AFC. But first, I want to tell you about today's sponsor, which is going to be Game Time, the only ticketing app that I have on my phone right now. And previously, guys, I used to have a bunch of different ticketing apps where I would compare the prices of like 4 or 5 different apps trying to get the lowest price. And then we started partnering with Game Time, and now I have deleted all of those other ticketing apps from my phone because they got the lowest price guarantee, so I don't have to keep shopping elsewhere. They got the lowest price guarantee on Game Time. Plus, they got flash deals right before the event. So if you're someone like me, likes to get last-minute tickets to MLB baseball games, concerts, hockey games, basketball games, whatever you can buy tickets for, Game Time has got it, and they've got great deals for you to take advantage of. It's the fastest-growing ticketing app in the country for a reason, people. Get images of your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Buy tickets in a matter of seconds as well. All you need is 2 taps, and you have your tickets. Tickets are also sent directly to your phone, another great feature, so you never have to dig through your email to get your tickets ever again. So snag your tickets without the stress today with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code NFLChat, one word, all caps, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code NFLChat, one word, all caps, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Now let's start with the AFC North here, where I do think Baltimore is going to hang on. Statistically, this is the most dominant team in the National Football League right now. Something changes, I'll change my rankings, but after a really good start to the year, I think Baltimore is going to finish atop the AFC North. Then you got Cincinnati. I do think they'll go on a second-half surge. They might lose tonight against the Baltimore Ravens, but at the end of the day, I do think that Cincinnati, as a wild card, could be particularly dangerous and potentially make a Super Bowl run from a wild card position. Pittsburgh, I think they win a lot of close football games. They're getting the run game going a little bit. The defense creates turnovers, but they give up a lot of yards on defense. Kenny Pickett and the passing game hasn't really been able to get going, and I worry that once they start playing some of these better teams, they still got the Bengals twice. They still got Seattle. They still got a lot of these really good football teams left out. They still got the Ravens another time. I just think they're going to take some losses here, and I really do think that their standing in the AFC playoff picture is going to be threatened. Then you got Cleveland. I think their season's done with DTR as the starting quarterback. With Deshaun Watson out for the rest of the year, this is a great defense, but the offense just isn't going to be able to put up yards and score points, so I got Cleveland finishing in last place. Then we get to the AFC East here, where I got the Miami Dolphins beating out the Buffalo Bills. Now, Buffalo, I think, is going to make a run of it. I think that they're going to win more football games in the second half of the year. I think that they had some really bad breaks go against them in the first half of the year, which is why they're sitting at 5-5. Really could be sitting at 8-2 at this point because they gave away wins to the Jets, the Patriots, and then the Denver Broncos last week on Monday Night Football. So Ken Dorsey's gone. Hopefully that's a positive change for them, and they end up making the playoffs. Then you got New York Jets Similar to Cleveland, offense can't score points, but the defense is great. And then New England, everything is bad in New England right now. They're going to finish dead last. Then we got AFC West here. Kansas City, of course, dominates this division year in, year out. Nothing's going to change about that. I think Los Angeles, currently at 4-5, is going to move up and really make a nice surge in the second half, trying to get into the playoff picture. Denver is a team that is probably the most average team statistically that you will find. They are 14th to 17th in almost every single statistical category you can find when it comes to team stats. So they're very average. I think they'll win a couple more games, but at the end of the day, no playoffs for Denver. Then you got Las Vegas, and, it's been a nice run, Vegas. It's been a nice job getting to 5-5, 2-0 with your new interim head coach. But you got a rookie quarterback in Aiden O'Connell that's not playing overly well. The defense just doesn't have the talent to really deliver big-time victories in the second half of the year, in my opinion. So at the end of the day, I do think the Raiders will finish last place in this division. Then you get to the AFC South here, where I got the Houston Texans, number 1 over the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, I know there's going to be some Jaguars fans that come after me for this, but I really like where Houston's going, man. C.J. Stroud really playing well, just upset the Cincinnati Bengals last week on the road. I think DeMeco Ryans has done a pretty darn good job with this defense as well. And Jacksonville, I think, is a little bit overrated. I think they got exposed a little bit last week versus the San Francisco 49ers. They're still going to be a playoff contender. They're going to be right in the thick of things. But this is definitely a team that could have a little bit of a collapse in the second half of the year. Indy, well-coached team, don't have enough talent, though. They're going to finish third, and then Tennessee just stinks all around. That offensive line is bad. The defense for a Mike Vrabel team is not up to his standard. Tennessee's going to finish last. Then for the division winners here, I'm going to have Baltimore finish first in this conference. I think that they're going to be a really good football team. Like I said, statistically, the most dominant team in football right now. Kansas City is going to be very solidly that number 2 spot. Still very much a Super Bowl contender. If I'd have to put my money on one team to win it right now, I'd probably put it on Kansas City just because I don't like betting against Patrick Mahomes. I'm going to have Miami finish the year at 3rd place with the NFC East Championship. Then Houston's going to get the number 4 seed for winning the South. Now, my wild cards. I'm going to start with the Buffalo Bills, all right? And this is because, just statistically, the Buffalo Bills should be 8-2, 7-3, somewhere in that range, because this is a damn good football team. Top 10 in almost every defense or offensive category. Defensively, they play very soundly. They're not a bad defense by any stretch of the imagination. So I really do think Buffalo, with a talent like Josh Allen, who's really doing a good job outside of the turnovers. He needs to clean those things up, but if he does that, I think this team's going to be damn good in the second half of the year. Number 6, I'm going to go with Cincinnati here just because I believe in the talent. The teams that I'm putting in my wild card situations here, I'm doing it based on talent and what I believe in right now, and I believe in the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow's awesome. Eventually, you're going to get T. Higgins back. You got Jamar Chase in there. The defense creates lots of turnovers. So is it a perfect team? No, but is this a team that could be really dangerous in a playoff setting in 8 weeks? Absolutely, 100%. Yes. And then, unfortunately, this pains me as the Steelers host here at Chat Sports, but I can't be a homer. I got to be objective here. And if I have to tell you between the Los Angeles Chargers and the Pittsburgh Steelers, who's the better football team right now, I have to say the Los Angeles Chargers. Justin Herbert is playing out of his mind the last couple of weeks. Even against a good defense last week in Detroit, he put up 38 points. Too bad his defense gave up 41, though. So I look at the Chargers. I think they're going to go on a second-half surge. They're third and third down defense, so their defense isn't quite as bad as you think. They're vulnerable to the big play, which means I think it's going to be another early-round exit for Los Angeles. But I really do like Justin Herbert. I like Kellen Moore. I like this team as a whole. They're not terrible in really many categories either. So I do like LA. I think they're going to go on a little bit of a surge here. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see because right now I got Jacksonville and the Steelers missing the playoffs when those teams are firmly entrenched in the playoff picture right now. So I definitely think, when it comes to these 3 teams, you add Jacksonville and Pittsburgh, you pick any 3 of those 5 at this point. But let me know, who's more likely to miss the playoffs, all right? So right now, in the current playoff picture, Jacksonville, Pittsburgh, and New Orleans are all in the playoffs. I don't have them in my projections here for the end of the season. Which one is the most likely to miss the playoffs here in 2023? Type JAC if you think Jacksonville, type PIT if you think the Steelers, or if you think the Saints. Type NO down there in the comment section. All right, so that'll be it for today's show, guys. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. If you disagree with any of my takes, let me know down there in the comment section. I can't wait to hash it out with you guys. And until next time, guys, peace.